Welcome to the Mixed Movement, where we speak candidly about the uncommon commonalities that people of mixed race face in our world today. Here, we listen, share, learn, and acknowledge that through our stories, we are all connected. We are your hosts,
Nate,
Chris,
and Rachael Go. Welcome to the show.
hello everyone, and welcome to today's show. Today, I have the opportunity to speak with Tanya, who is somebody that I've gotten to know through actually a friend of a friend locally here where I live. I haven't seen this person in a long time, and I ran into them at, if you guys follow my Instagram page, Polished Velvet, you'll know that I absolutely love my local farmers market. And I reconnected with some friends this summer, and Tanya's mother-in-law was so excited to hear about the podcast and all of the work that I'm doing and couldn't stop recommending that I connect with Tanya. And I'm so very happy that I have. She is here today with us to share a little bit about her story. So welcome, Tanya. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so excited. I feel like I am totally geeking out every time I think about interviewing you and having an opportunity to hear your story a little bit more. So let's start with a little bit of your background.
Sure. So I'm originally from a small town in Western Washington, where I was raised by my single mother. I want to say our town was like 3,400 people, like one stoplight small. So
Oh my goodness.
it was very tiny, and it was a four-way stop, a blinking red light, until I was probably, I don't know, like a freshman in high school. So it's tiny.
Wow.
So raised by my mom. So I'm Native American Hawaiian, and my mom's Caucasian. So I am one of the few, people of color in this town. I think we had no African Americans growing up in my high school, not one. So I'm not
Oh my
like exaggerating when I say that. So it was interesting growing up, as a person of color in a small town. Everyone knows you. Everyone knows your business. Everyone,
Yeah.
typically has something to say. But, I have since moved away from this town. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I work in human resources, which is always entertaining, but
Oh, I'm sure.
never a dull moment.
No. So during your upbringing, do you have any siblings?
So my father, who is Native American Hawaiian, remarried when I was small. I was really little when he remarried. And he had 3. So I have a half brother and 2 half sisters. And then there was a period in between when he was remarried and my mom and him still being together where he fathered another child. So I have another half brother as well.
Okay.
So I didn't grow up with them in the home. I was raised basically as an only child, but I do have siblings.
Okay. Did they grow up in the same community that you grew up in?
No. So my father and then his wife and my siblings, they all grew up on the reservation. So
Okay.
very different, I would say, way of life and upbringing than I had, where I was much smaller, if that's possible.
So growing up, you were really the only person of color in your community then.
Well, there were a few others. We had some Latinos in our community. We had a few, I remember a couple of Asian kids. I remember there were a few other Native Americans as well. So there were some of us, but not a lot.
Would you say that you felt like you fit in growing up pretty well, or were there any interesting moments for you where you felt like you weren't really sure how to navigate a situation when it comes to your background and your heritage?
Looking back, I would say for the most part, I felt like I fit in. I would say one of the bigger struggles was all of my friends had parents who were married. So they had a mom and a dad. So that part was really hard for me because my father basically wasn't in the picture at that point. But then again, there were also times when we would be having, class discussions and, talking about Native Americans, and people would say, oh, well, they're on the reservation with broken down cars in their yards and they're a bunch of drunk Indians. And then they would look at me and say,
Whoa.
well, we don't think of you like that, Tanya. Obviously you did, because I was the first person that you associated that with.
Yeah.
So
So
there
nice
were
try.
right. There were definitely
Yeah.
some moments of, being uncomfortable and not really knowing how to work through that because,
Yeah.
my mom, who is white, didn't experience that. So
Right.
she couldn't necessarily relate to it. And I also didn't necessarily have the tools to be able to communicate how I was feeling, as like a 15, 16-year-old.
Right. Did you try? Were there moments that you did approach your mom about these situations?
Honestly, no. I don't remember ever having that conversation with her. I don't really feel like I even started really thinking about that until I was, grown, until I was adult, and kind of starting reflecting back on, being Native American
Mhm.
and now having Native American children and, wanting to do better, I would say.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. I personally can relate. I was in similar situations growing up, and I never talked to my mom about it. And I don't really know exactly why, but it kind of felt a little bit isolating sometimes too. And again, for me right now with my children, I want to do better for them and make them feel safe and comfortable
Right.
having those conversations
Right.
if they happen. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I will say that is one thing that my children's school district does a really great job of. They have a Native American program in the school.
They
So
do.
they do. So and they start from the time I think they're in kindergarten. So there's a teacher who comes and takes them out of class, and they talk about the different tribes and their culture, and they have art projects. My daughter moved into middle school this past year, and they had a promotion ceremony where she was honored as, promoting up from elementary to middle school. So it's a really, really wonderful program.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Did you have anything like that offered to you growing up?
No, that wasn't an option.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how far away are you from where you grew up right now?
So, I mean, it's not too far. It's probably, I would say, about 75 miles or so away
Okay.
from. It's just with Washington, I mean, you know this. There's it's such a big difference, between 75 to 100 miles can
Oh,
make.
yes.
I
Yes.
mean, we can get from, Bellingham to Seattle all the way down to, like, Olympia.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's incredible. So, going back and sharing a little bit more about your upbringing, you were raised by your mother who's white, Caucasian. Were you allowed to get in touch with your Native American side? Did you have a relationship with your father's side of the family?
I did. I didn't necessarily have a relationship with my father. That part was, very difficult. But his parents, my grandparents, were amazing. They were wonderful people. They would, stop and drop off smoked salmon and stop to say hi. They would take me to
Oh, good.
the Puyallup Fair every summer. And then my aunt, so my dad's sister, was also a big part of my life. So I was really close to my cousins growing up. So and my other aunt, who is other sister. So while I may not have had a strong relationship with him, I definitely was in touch with the other side of the family. Like my grandparents took me to, powwows and Puyallup and down in Warm Springs. So I was definitely, exposed to aspects of the culture, which is amazing.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that because oftentimes that's not really everyone's story. So,
Mhm.
do you feel like that connection really impacted you and helped you remain connected to your Native American roots?
Absolutely. I will say, I don't feel as connected as I would like to be. I feel like I could have done a lot more, especially, now being an adult. But I'm glad that I have those experiences. And like going to your first powwow or hearing like my grandma would sing and her voice was so incredible. I could recognize her voice out of like blindfolded out of 10
Yeah.
people. So,
That's
being able to
amazing.
have those memories and to share that with my kids is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That just makes me so very happy to hear. You mentioned as an adult, you don't feel like you are as connected. Do you, do you care to share a little bit more why?
I am enrolled in my tribe. My girls are not enrolled in the tribe. And a lot of that is because it would have, at one point, I would have had to have had my father sign off on it, and he never met them. And I really don't want him to. So
Okay.
that was part of it. But I don't get back to the reservation very often. I don't go back for general counsel. I haven't been to a powwow probably in 16 years. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel a little disconnected from my culture and from my roots, I would say.
May I share something?
Yes, of course.
Give yourself some grace. It's life. You are married, you are a mom, but you also have two daughters that are fairly active and very proud to share that they're Native American as well. And that was one thing that your mother-in-law had shared with me initially. She's like, you have to get in touch with Tanya. Look at my granddaughters and what they're doing. Do you mind sharing about what they did at such a
Yes.
young age?
Oh
Because
my
that
gosh.
is amazing.
These two have this confidence that I don't even know that I have it today. So they were asked to be a part of, so the school district, this wonderful school district that we're a part of, does a land acknowledgement every year for the start of the school year because we're on Puyallup land. So they asked, it was 3 students to come up in front of every teacher, every paraeducator in the entire district. It's about probably 1,200 people.
Oh my word.
And they took this microphone and went down and introduced themselves. They said, what tribe they're from, and they read a section of a poem. And to be able to
Wow.
do that, my youngest, she's 8. My oldest is 11, and she's always been fierce and confident. But for those
Oh,
two to get down there and just be able to embrace that and be proud of it, and not stutter, to just be so
wow.
confident. It was definitely a proud parenting moment.
Oh, absolutely. That is so impressive. Oh my goodness. And now when they approached you with this, what were your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I was so excited. I was so happy. So the principal of the school is the one who had thought of our children. And I was just like, that's amazing. Let me talk to them. I want them to be able to make the choice.
Mhm.
I had a copy of the poem that they would read, and it was a very large poem. I mean, I think they each probably read about 9 lines or so at least.
Oh, wow.
And I made sure that they had a chance to read it, review it, ask if they're comfortable, that's something they want to do. And both of them were just like, yes, I want to. Let's do it.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Congratulations. I feel like although you might feel disconnected, the amount of encouragement, not only from their school district, but from you also, I just encourage you not to disregard that as part of a connection. Have you, or are you planning on taking your daughters to your tribe?
So my youngest has been there with me. My
Okay.
oldest has not. I think at some point I will. I do want them to be enrolled in the tribe. And for that, they would have to go there. It's done in person. I think it's voted on in the general council meeting as well. So I would want them to be there for that. So I think it is something that I need to do. I haven't yet.
And that's okay. Be patient. Life is crazy busy as a mama. I understand.
Oh my goodness, like sports and practice 4 nights a
Yeah.
week, games on
Oh my
weekends.
gosh. Oh my goodness. And again, thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Are you struggling to understand the complexities of your mixed race identity? Do you feel isolated by the lack of resources available to help you and others around you understand the nuances of being mixed race? Now is the time to take action and schedule your free consultation for my individual coaching course. In our time together, you will gain a deeper understanding of your unique mixed race identity and how to navigate the challenges you face.
Here are just a few examples of what I have helped individuals just like you gain from my course. You will learn how to embrace and love every aspect of what makes you unique. You'll learn how to navigate complex social situations with confidence. And I have even helped many of my clients move out of areas where they didn't feel safe because they are mixed race. Don't wait any longer to gain the confidence and understanding that you need to live a more fulfilling life. Message me on Instagram at polished.velvet, on Facebook at Mixed Movement, or feel free to email me directly at coachrachelgo@gmail.com. And that's CoachRachelGo@gmail.com. Let's make magic happen in your life. And share your story. And on that note, I do want to talk a little bit more about maybe your upbringing growing up and high school experience, and if there was any moment that you had growing up that really kind of impacted you and brought you closer to that part of your heritage.
Mm-hmm. So growing up, I always felt safe. I always had friends. I always felt like, I belonged. One thing that really does kind of stick out for me. So my grandma, amazing, fierce, short little woman that she was, she had the biggest voice ever. She would call me her little hoquat, which means like white person in our language.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, she meant it as a term of endearment.
Yes.
But I definitely always felt like I was too white for my native side and that I was like too brown for my white side. Like I didn't, necessarily feel like I was, like everyone else. I mean, I had plenty of friends. I was active. I was involved. I was in student leadership. I did all those things, but I definitely felt like I kind of stuck out no matter where I went. And it wasn't something I wanted.
How did you navigate that? Or reflecting back, do you feel like that had kind of pivoted or pushed you to behave a certain way or do certain things?
No, I don't think that really did. I mean, if I had to describe like how I navigated it, you kind of just dealt with it or accepted it, I suppose. I never went out of my way to address it or talk about it. Again, I didn't really have those communication tools when I was that age. I know going back, there's a neighboring town that's also really small. And I went back with my now husband and we went to this restaurant for breakfast. And I was literally the only person of color in the entire restaurant. And he was like, "Why are people staring at you?" I'm like,
Really?
"Welcome to growing up in a white town."
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Do you feel like that encouraged you to get out of your small town?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Really?
That is one thing. I mean, when I went to college and I looked around and I saw all these people of color, I was like, this is amazing.
I knew there was a place like this.
Right. Well, and, growing up, I didn't go to the city very often. That's just not something you did. I mean, now people, even my family is like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how you drive in Seattle. It's so big." And I'm like,
That's
"It's fine.
funny.
It's fine."
Yeah. I mean, for me, my upbringing, I was raised outside of Chicago in the Chicago suburbs. And I can't say that there were very many mixed race people in my community, but I didn't really feel that growing up, that I was stared at, or, I know this something that happened in your adult life. But I don't blame you at all for wanting to get out, and good for you for broadening your horizons too. Do you still have family that lives in the town that you grew up in?
I don't. My grandma on my mom's side is now in a nursing home, so she's not there in the town anymore. I have plenty of friends who are still there. My best friend is still there, so I still go back. Not often, but I do go back. But no, I mean, I don't have family there. My parents have moved, so they're a little closer to us now too. And then I still have family on the reservation, but like I said, I don't really go back there.
Yeah. Do your half siblings on your dad's side, do you have a relationship with any of them or have you connected with them?
I will say those relationships are very complicated.
Yeah, I can
um,
understand that.
yeah,
Yeah.
only because they don't necessarily understand why I have the feelings I have towards our father, because that's not how they perceive him. He was wonderful and amazing and present for them, which is phenomenal. Like I'm glad that they had that, but that's not how it was for me. So we are okay, I will say. There's been some resentment, there's been some arguments, there's been periods of times where we haven't spoken in years. So I will say we're a work in progress.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's really personal. I appreciate that. I know that family dynamics, especially with blended families, can be pretty complicated. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about your emotions towards being mixed race in particular? Do you feel like you've ever been put in a position where you've had to choose or somebody has asked you how you identify?
Yeah. I mean, emotions regarding being mixed race. I would say I'm always proud of my culture and my background. I do remember specifically applying for college, and they want you to check a box. And
Yep.
when you are Native American, when you are Caucasian, also being a female, I marked that I was white. And
You
it was
did?
I did because I wanted to be accepted on my merits, not because I was Native American.
Tanya, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry to be so surprised, but thank you for that perspective. Like, if you were to go back and do that again, would you make the same decision?
If I were to go back and do it again, I don't think I would make the same decision. I think I would say that I'm Native American. Obviously, if they let you pick more than one, I'll say that I'm,
No,
Native
herein
American
lies the
white.
problem.
I know. You must choose one.
Yeah,
I feel like we're all so much more diverse and complicated than that at this point. No,
yeah,
I think I probably would go back and say that I'm Native American, just
yeah.
with the perspective of being 40 plus versus 16 and
Right,
17. Life
right.
kind of changes your way of thinking. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'd change it.
absolutely. Was there ever a moment when you were in college where you did wish you would have changed that and maybe have the ability to be more or recognized as Native American?
Um, No, I think honestly, college was a good experience for me. I was just such a lost soul with so many
Mhm,
unresolved issues at that point in my
mhm.
life that I didn't really reflect on it at that
Yeah,
point. I had no idea who I was at that point
yeah.
in life, and being, having grown up with a single mom and not had a father present, and there was just a lot of issues to work through and resolve.
Do you feel like college helped you work through those
No.
and kind of
No,
nope.
college didn't help me. So I will say I didn't graduate from college. At that point, college was at a point where my mom and my stepdad, he's my dad. He's been in my life since I was like 16 or 17. He's
Mhm.
incredible. My children call him Papa.
Oh,
But they had already remarried. So I had to use their income when I was applying for student loans. They made too much to qualify
yeah.
for financial aid and not enough to pay for school. So it was on me. So I didn't graduate from college. I left and I went and worked on a cruise ship. And I did that on and off for about 3.5 years. And during those 3.5 years, I would say is when I learned who I was and when I grew up and
Wow.
started to finally, I would say, kind of love myself, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
What do you feel was the biggest element of that? Of you learning how to love yourself and embrace who you are?
Oh, this is going to sound so cheesy, but
I'm here for
so
it. I'm here for it.
being on this cruise ship, I was around so much nature, and I got to experience the like Alaskan, Native American. What are
Oh, uh-huh.
So I got to
Prob-
see like a totem pole raising and see bears in the wild and them in rivers catching salmon, and I saw
wow.
whales and killer whales, and it just brought me so much peace, I would say. that it kind of shut down the like angry, confused voices in my head and put me
Yeah.
on a path where I wanted to be better. So during that time, I would say it really made me grow up.
I think that's beautiful, Tanya. Thank you.
Oh, I'm still that person. I cry when I see a whale. It makes me so
Oh,
happy.
me too. No, and I think that as far as your culture, that probably kind of helped bring you even closer to your roots, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. Just being able to have those experiences and talk to so many different people. And I was also working with people from all over the country who had,
Right.
different experiences. And just to have different perspectives and to experience it without my mom, to experience it without, any outside influences that are known to me, and to just do it on my own independently, it was really, really good for me. It was very therapeutic, I would say.
I'm so happy for you. That's huge. And I hope that our listeners are able to take away a little bit of Tanya's story too. Because truthfully, sometimes we do get so sucked into the dynamics of our family or our friends group or whatever our community is that sometimes getting away and completely being independent can teach you more than you would ever anticipate. I've moved twice, two major moves in my life, and both times were really isolating, really hard. But those were the moments where I learned so much about myself. more than
Absolutely.
more than therapy could, more than, anything, more than my family could help me realize. But I think that's amazing that the cruise ship that you worked on was an Alaskan cruise.
Yeah, so we did, it was Southeast Alaska. We also did the Columbia River. So,
That's
um,
awesome.
it was really small. It was less than 100 people, and then also Baja, Mexico. So I was this
Wow.
21, 22-year-old out there traveling on my own,
Good for
figuring things out.
you.
It was, I definitely, like I said, I grew up a lot during that time period. I made some incredible friends during that time period, people I still keep in touch with, 20 years
Good.
later. And just, yeah, I was able to experience so many things just with fresh, kinder eyes, I would say. I was much kinder to myself during that time in my life.
Good. Good for you. So, leaving that part of your life, what then did you do next?
So, following the cruise ship is when I decided I was ready to move out of my small town for good because I had kind of
Okay.
come back there in between a little bit, and I moved to Seattle. So, I went, big city. I had at one point my own apartment for a year, which was amazing.
Wow.
Um,
That is
and yeah,
amazing.
I ended up working in a couple of different offices, but then I went back to that same cruise company and I got into HR. Around that time period is when I met my husband, and still in HR, different company now. I was there 10 years. Now I work for
Yeah.
a different company, but my husband and I are still together. We have 2 kids. We, have a wonderful home. Life is insane, but I wouldn't trade
Yeah.
it for anything.
Do you mind sharing? Are there any Native American traditions that you bring into your home, either during holidays or daily life, that you incorporate into your life with your children and with your family?
Not necessarily traditions per se, but we do reflect a lot on just relatives and terminology. And we talk about my auntie and my cousins. We talk about my grandma. She was a basket weaver, and
Oh,
she
wow.
made these incredible baskets. I mean, so detailed that you could tell that it was a canoe and there were people. There were 4 people in the canoe, so
What?
tight they could hold water. I mean, there were whales woven
Wow.
into it. So we talk a lot about my grandma and those traditions. This is, I would say, probably one of my life's biggest regrets. I don't have a ton, but she wanted to teach me when I was little how to make baskets, and I didn't want to
Oh.
learn. And she's
Oh.
since passed away. So that I would say is probably, something that I kick myself to this day for. But we definitely talk a lot about family, and growing up out on the coast is so different than the way, my children are. And,
Yeah.
you know, I was allowed at like 5 years old to just run around free by myself. And
Right.
that's not happening now. So.
No, not quite the same.
No.
So this conversation has been fairly focused around your Native American side. Is there anything from your mother's side that has influenced you and your family and traditions?
We definitely have a lot of traditions that we continue every year, but I don't necessarily think it's tied to our, culture and our background. So I was thinking about our DNA, and we're English, which is interesting. I didn't realize that. And then also Swedish as well, and Finnish.
Oh, wow.
So we've done I've done my DNA testing, and my husband's a history major, so he's super into, tracing back our family tree. So it was interesting to look and see who it was that came through Ellis Island, and
Oh, wow.
trace it back to there. My grandma gave me a cup that I think it was my great 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 grandfather that he had got when he was on Ellis Island. So I have that.
Wow.
So, there are definitely things that we talk about, but I don't necessarily know traditions, tied to the Swedish or Finnish side at all.
So there wasn't anything necessarily significant or definitive of those cultures that you were exposed to growing up necessarily.
No, not really. Or maybe they were, and I just didn't realize it because it was unspoken. So I don't know if there's, foods that we eat that are tied to, that side of things or not. It's possible. There are definitely foods that we have, every holiday.
Yes.
And this is what you do. But I don't necessarily know that it's tied to, Sweden or Finland or.
That's amazing. So your daughters, do you mind sharing a little bit more about, have you noticed or picked up on anything in particular that they feel drawn to in particular with your Native American ancestry?
I will say they ask a lot of questions. They want to know what it was like for me growing up. They're very good kids. They're very sweet kids for the most part.
We all have our moments.
Oh gosh, yeah. So yeah, they definitely, they ask questions. They want to know. They ask a lot about my grandma and her baskets. Fishing is still a big part of the tribe and the economy there. So they ask questions about that. If I've ever done that, if I've ever gone clam digging, which I have, and I hated every second of it. So there's, those are the things that they really want to ask about. They talk about, songs and dance, and that's one thing. I don't know the language. I know certain words in the language, but I know that it's being spoken more than it has in the past, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. If they were interested in one particular learning something, have you thought about that? If they wanted to learn how to basket weave?
Oh gosh, I'm sure I could find someone who could teach them how to basket weave. There's certainly elders in the tribe that still do it, but they did. So again, I'll go back to our school and our district and the program. They offered a Native American dance program.
No
and
way.
It was weekly for, I want to say it was 6 or 8 weeks. So my youngest was still really little at that point, but I took my oldest and we went every single week, and she learned about fancy dancing and grass dancing and jiggle dancing. And, there's 365 bells on the on the regalia. It's not a costume, it's regalia. So yeah, so she was super into that.
That's amazing. And how did you feel during that experience?
Oh, it was great. It was so great. And the teachers were amazing, and you learned how you introduce yourself at a powwow. You say your name, your parents' names, your tribe, all of those things. So it was good to learn those traditions and to know more about it. But it's one of those things, like as I was dancing with her, that's where you know it's in your blood. Like it came so naturally to me and so easy for me that I just thought it was wonderful to have that bond with her.
That's beautiful. That just gave me goosebumps, because those are the moments that really just connect you. And you might not be able to articulate it or understand it when it's happening, but like you said, you knew. Your
Yeah,
ancestors were
and this
coming through.
was, I don't even know how many years ago it was at this point. It was probably, I love that everything is pre-COVID or post-COVID, but
Yeah, exactly.
it was definitely pre-COVID. So, um, and she had to have been probably in first grade, so it's been a
Mhm.
minute, but we
That's
still talk about it.
amazing. Yeah,
So impactful for her as well.
that's amazing. Is there anything in particular, Tanya, that you would like to talk about? Like a moment that has been brought up for you or a story?
I do, and I don't know, you tell me if it was kind of like a perspective for my husband to
I
feel
do
for
want
a
to talk
second.
about. Okay.
So there was a time we were in Hawaii and it was right before our wedding, and we had gone to a store to get the maid of honor and best man gifts. And typically when my husband and I go shopping and we get separated, he just turns around and looks for the short brown girl. So we're in Hawaii.
Sorry. I'm like, I see where this is going. Yep.
So we're in Hawaii and he turns around and we're everywhere. So
Mhm.
he couldn't find me. He was like, Tanya, I was the only white person in there. I'm like, welcome to my world, sir. Welcome to my world.
The tables have turned.
Right? But it's funny though. So he's Latino. He's, I think, a quarter Latino. I think
Okay.
Spain Spanish, but he is all kinds of white. He's got like light brown hair and blue eyes, and you would never be able to tell by looking at him.
Right. Right. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that is, I mean, being in a relationship with somebody who is white, my ex-husband is white, and I definitely felt that same thing. And he and I have lived in Hawaii for a long time, and I definitely blended in as a
Uh-huh.
local. And I'm like, you're
Uh-huh.
the one that sticks out like a sore thumb, which is
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Uh-huh. He told me, like, as we were leaving the store, he was laughing, and I was like, "What is so funny?" I was like, "Oh, that's great. That is fantastic."
That's amazing. So has he fully embraced or has he been interested in part of your culture or what it's like to be mixed?
Yes, he's definitely asked questions about what it's like to be mixed because I've expressed kind of, my feelings to him about growing up and not necessarily feeling like I belonged on either side and, raising our girls because he never wants our girls to feel that way. So, we've talked a lot about it. I would say it's hard for him because he had such strong feelings towards my father that he
Yeah.
just didn't understand, how he could not be a part of my life. So he never really forgave him for that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I can understand how you are able to form such strong emotions towards a family member, but the fact that he is still in support and encouraging your daughters to learn about their heritage is huge.
Oh yeah, he was their biggest supporter, in getting them and encouraging them to go in front of the
Mm.
entire school and talk about, their tribe and their name and read a poem. He was very, very excited.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to know that you have created such a beautiful, loving, and supportive family and environment and encouraging your daughters to get in touch with that part of themselves is also it's so impactful and so important. Thank you.
I'm glad that they're able to do that. And my
Yeah.
mom, I don't know that she necessarily didn't encourage me,
Mhm.
but I don't remember a lot of encouragement being there. I don't
Right.
remember, you
She
should
didn't
learn about
deny
this. You should
it.
talk. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. She didn't like prohibit it from me, but she
Right.
never, kind of nudged me.
Yeah. So I have one question for you before we wrap things up today. If there is one legacy that you would like to leave behind for the world, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. That is
Sorry.
like that is a big, deep
It's
question.
a bomb.
It
Sorry.
is.
Take your time.
If there were one legacy I would like to leave to the world, this is going to be really complicated. And
Yeah, go for it.
working through, especially a time in our world in the US with things being so divided politically, I want my children and today's youth to do better. I want them to learn from history and to not repeat history. So if there were a legacy I could leave, it would be basically educating our youth and encouraging them to be kinder than anyone has been in previous generations. I think kindness is really underrated and undervalued right now, and I would like to be known for being kind and for helping where I can.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I could not agree more. We all do need a lot more kindness. We need to give it and receive it, and the world will be a much, much better place.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing that, Tanya. And thank you for your time and sharing everything that you have. It's been an honor to get to know you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. We want to be here for you, and we can't do what we're doing without your support. Please hit subscribe, and to stay up to date, head on over to mixedmovement.com. That's MIXDMOVEMENT.com to stay up to date with news and more. We are the Mixed Movement. See you next time.